Supergirl Season 3, Episode 8, Crisis on Earth X, Part 1. So this, of course, is the first part of the two-night, four-part crossover. I brought this up a million times, but Supergirl was actually a part of the crossover, which made me very happy, because that was just the whole thing last year. But this is actually really awesome. I didn't realize that they were doing it this way, because when Arrow came on last week, I was like, I don't know how it's going to play out. Like, I know the characters are going to be in there, but typically with it being the crossover, it's like the actual show, because each show focuses on that show's characters. And I was like, I wonder how that's going to play out with it only being, I thought it was only going to be two parts, because they never really said it was going to be four. It was just the two-night event. But Arrow came on last night, I believe. Actually, Flash and Legends always come on Tuesday, so all they did was really move Arrow this week. But it was really good. This is a great first part. I was debating whether or not to do part 1 and part 2 together, but I was like, I have no idea what's going to happen in part 2. It could just be like a ton of stuff leading into, parts 3 and 4. So I was like, I'll just, keep them separate and do, the individual reviews for every series. But this is a great first start. As far as crossovers go, this was actually really awesome for the first part. It was legitimately like a crossover. It wasn't kind of like last year, really focused on each individual character or the characters, from those shows. Like with Arrow, they had Sarah and Ray go there because that's where those characters premiered. Stein and Jax were in Flash and stuff like that. And this was just like, everyone is everywhere. Like, it didn't even start with Kara. Like, it actually started somewhere else. And I was like, that's actually super cool. And it starts with, of course, Barry and Iris, because it's their wedding and everything. So I was like, alright, that's actually pretty awesome. It starts there. And then they do the RSVP stuff. And so we get to see Oliver fighting off some ninjas. He takes them down. That last one he took down, I don't know what sort of magic super arrow he had, but he shot that dude through a wall. I was like, that looked cool, but I was like, what sort of piston arrow was he just shooting? Did he shoot at that guy? But, everybody's going through. We get to see the legends. They're talking about RSVPing and stuff like that. So it was pretty awesome. And then we go to Kara, and she's actually fighting one of the Dominators. And I was like, okay, that's a cool little reference to the last big crossover. So I thought that was nice. And, they do that. And then, of course, we have our villains. We actually get to see Jimmy as Guardian, which I thought was interesting because he hasn't been Guardian for a minute in Supergirl. But we get to see Jimmy in, like, the Earth X version of Jimmy as Guardian, where he actually has, he basically had, like, the old school Captain America shield, which I thought was really funny because it was, like, it's the same shape, but then it was even painted on. And I was like, all that does is make me think of old school Captain America. But he's fighting evil Oliver, whatever evil villain name they're eventually going to have, because none of them have names yet. It's just like, well, that's evil Oliver, that's evil Kara, that's Reverse Flash. I was kind of hoping when he got revealed at the end, I was really hoping it was going to be the other actor who was in Legends of Tomorrow, but it's still, and they'll probably utilize this, but it's still a version of Wells. So maybe they'll actually utilize that, which would be cool. But I was like, I was kind of hoping to see that other actor come back, because I think he's a good actor too. But it's also just kind of awesome because they have like two people to choose from when they do Reverse Flash. But we get to see Earth X. It is the full-on Nazi Earth. It's basically like, if for anyone who's a gamer, it's the Wolfenstein version of the DC universe. So that was pretty cool. Just Nazis doing their thing. For whatever reason, they decide to jump Earths, and they want to get somebody. It's hard to say if they're trying to get Barry or who else, it is. Odds are with it being Barry and Iris's wedding, they're trying to take them. They also reference the last crossover, like the small crossover between Supergirl and Flash, which I thought was cool, which was the musical, for anyone who, if you don't watch both shows or whatever, it was a musical thing. So I thought that was cool, and they referenced that, and that's why Kara was singing at the wedding. That was what they were referencing, like their last little adventure. And also that's why they talk about Mon-El, because he was in that crossover that they did. So that was kind of cool. I like that. Mon-El is, kind of showing off. With this being the Supergirl version, I assume everyone's watched Supergirl. But for those of you who don't, Mon-El was Kara's boyfriend, and then some crazy stuff happened. He, went through time and came back, and it's nuts. It's insane. So yeah, they did their little bit of stuff for Supergirl, and then it was just like, boom, full-on crossover. We just get to see everybody meeting up. Some characters meeting again, some characters meeting for the first time, including Sarah and Alex, which I'd never thought about it, because, they're two separate shows. Sarah's jumping through time and stuff, and for the most part, Alex was meant to be married. So when they met, I was like, oh, they might actually do something with this. And it was way faster than I thought. I was like, maybe it'll build up. It was like, nope, they got drunk and they did it. And it was just like, all right, well, that's it. But after that happened, like them just meeting up, I was like, I've never considered it, but they would be a super badass team, because they're both really cool characters. Obviously, it can never work because they're not only on different planets, but Sarah is also constantly, jumping through time. She can't even hang out with the Arrow characters anymore because she's jumping through time with the team. So of course it will never work. But I was like, man, they would actually make a really badass couple, and we do get to see them team up and fight Prometheus in this episode. So that was definitely cool. It actually had a lot of great action moments during the first wedding. I'm gonna call it because we know they're gonna have a second like happy ending wedding, but it was really freaking sweet. Like they did some cool stuff, especially Wally. Like the part where he grabs the bullets and he spins and throws one of the bullets back in the gun. I was like, that was insanely cool. So I love that sequence. We get to see Caitlin, do Killer Frost, and she makes like the blade and stuff, and she's slicing people down, and Barry and Wally, running in and taking people out. Oliver basically fighting the evil version of himself. All of that stuff just looked really cool. Like the whole fight sequence, I thought was actually really well done. The hand-to-hand stuff was good, like Sarah and Alex teaming up. So that was really awesome. The actual power stuff, like I said, with Wally and Barry, all that stuff was really cool too. Because Barry had a cool moment in the very beginning when they first start shooting, and he grabs all the bullets like going across, and then he goes back up to the altar and he just drops them all. And I was like, well, that looks super cool. And then Wally got his moment too. So everybody had like a pretty cool sequence during the fight. Like everybody got to do some cool stuff. Cisco was doing his thing. He unfortunately gets knocked out, so he has a concussion. He's unconscious in this episode, leading into part 2. But all in all, this was a really cool first part. It was fairly simple. It was, the introduction. It's, the Nazi Earth, whatever's going on there. I saw like the first couple of seconds of part 2, and that was kind of a reasoning as to why I kind of decided to do each episode separately, because they revealed something like the first couple of seconds of part 2, and I was like, oh, I didn't see that coming. I'm sure it won't have the most drastic effect in the universe, but it was definitely a cool little thing that they did. So I was like, I love that. Definitely excited to, see part 2, and then of course parts 3 and 4 are going to premiere tonight, so I'm definitely looking forward to those. But yeah, this was definitely a great first part. I already like this more than I liked the last crossover, just because it feels like every episode is going to have every single team, and it didn't really, it did a little bit of focus on Kara, of course, and kind of the Supergirl storyline, but for the most part, it was legitimately just everybody's already here, everything is already crossed over. Like I said, it didn't even actually start with the main character of technically the series that we were watching. So it was definitely a cool way to do the crossover, and I'm excited to get into part 2 and see how that plays out and what the motives are behind the villains and everything. Like, who are they trying to capture? What are they trying to do? I'm sure it'll be something about taking over the Earth or whatever. At this point, though, we're basically dealing with like what was it, like the Crime Syndicate or the Injustice League, depending on how you want to look at it. But the Crime Syndicate in comics, I want to say, is Earth 3. And that's basically every hero is a villain and every villain is a hero. But this is kind of a blend because Reverse Flash is still with them, and obviously he's a villain. But for the most part, we've seen heroes, but we also saw Guardian as a hero, still being a hero. So it's almost like a weird blend of that. But of course, they're Nazis, so everybody sucks. But yeah, definitely an awesome episode. Looking forward to part 2, like I said. Of course, want to know what you guys thought about this first part, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, least favorite parts about it. Obviously, we have part 2, 3, and 4 going into Arrow, Flash, and then Legends of Tomorrow. So I would love to know what you guys want to see from this crossover, what other characters you guys want to see them bring in. I know the Arrow characters are supposed to come in. At least Renee, for sure, I've seen. I would assume more of the Legends are supposed to come in because we've only had like 4 of the characters. So we got Jax, Stein, Mick, and Sarah so far. I'm sure we're going to get to see Ray come in. I was kind of surprised that Ray wasn't in the very beginning, considering he was one of the characters that technically all the characters pretty much premiered in the other shows, but Ray was in Arrow, like, I think that was, season 2 or something, so I was really surprised that he wasn't already in the first part of this crossover. So I'd love to know which characters you guys are looking forward to seeing kind of pop up in the crossover. What you guys want to see as far as like villains popping up, because I'm sure we're going to have more than just these 3. I could totally be wrong, but I assume we're going to have more than just these 3 villains, and we'll get to see some other versions as well. So I definitely want to know what other villains you guys want to see, or alternate versions of the heroes you guys want to see, and I just want to know what you guys thought about part 1 in general. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.